taratas chate sovikyaswarat. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Moyanti Yatsurayaha. Tejo Varimridam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Chisargo Misha. Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestation, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by reactions to the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations in the material world. And meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitrovotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagvatam Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparir Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from an illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kapataro galitam phalam sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam mahur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagvatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantak Stohi Bhadrani Vidunati Srihit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nasta prayesu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasche cheta itaranavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance. And thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chityante Sarvasamsaya Shriyante Jasya Karmani Trista Evat Manishwari. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I shall offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiraja Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Chintamani Prakadasadmasukalpa Riksha Lakshavrite Susrabhirabhipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvananta Arvinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamaya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayuratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yat Chaktirasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Yurupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktaryameva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabihi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhutaha Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Bhuto Primanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadaiva Hridayesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Asesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesha Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Try Gunya Tad Vishayaveda Vitayamanam Sattva Volambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Masa Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayat Yajastram Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talecha Tasya Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute Sutesu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shristi Stati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka. Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga. Ikchanurupam Apyasya Chatesta Tesa. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga. Sanjayate Nahitata Pritagasti Heto. Yasambhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karyat. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dipachad Eva Hita Santanam Abhyupetya. Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma. Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnutaya Vibhati. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga. Nidramananta Jagananda Saroma Kupaha. Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasyaika Nisvasita Kyalam Atavalambya. Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagananda Nataha. Vishnu Mahan Saihiyasya Kalavisheso. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Bhasman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha. Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvadatra. Brahmaya Esa Jagananda Vidana Karta. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha. Dvande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Rajaha. Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha. Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani. Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam. Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha. Yasya Gyaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Srutayastabamsi. Brahma Dikita Patagava Deyasta Jivaha. Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yaschendra Gopam Aplavendra Mahoswakarma. Bandhanurupa Falabhajana Matanoti. Karmani Nidhati Kintu Chabhakti. Karmani Nidhati Kintu Chabhakti Bhajam. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranadi Biti. Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhava Hai. Bhava. Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo. Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam. Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki. Chid Anandam Toti Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha. Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shavati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan. Nime Sardakyo Va Rajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tam Aham Iha Golakam Itiyam Vedantaste Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Shishopanishad Ki Jai Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Dachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Ishavaishamidam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagat Tinataktin Abunjitaha Magritaha Kashisviddanam Kurvani Vahakarmani Jiva Chekchatam Samaha Evam Twayi Nanyatetosti Nakarma Lipite Nare Asurya Namate Loka Andena Tamasam Vritahas Tamste Pritya Bhikachanti Eke Chatma Hano Janaha Anijadi Kamanaso Javio Nena Devam Apravam Pravam Asata Davato Nyana Teti Tistata Asminapumata Visva Dadati Tadijiti Tanejati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Selbayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanupasyate Sarvabhute Sachatmanam Tatuna Vijagupsate Yasvin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bud Vijanataha Tatrako Mahakaha Sukha Ekatvam Anupasyataha Saprayagachukam Akayam Avinam Asnaviram Sudam Apapavidam Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambu Yatatat Yatorutan Vyadadach Chasvatipyaha Samabhyaha Andam Tamaha Pravisanti Ye Vidyam Upasyate Tato Bhuya Vitetamo Yayu Vidyayam Rataha Anyadeva Hurvidyaya Anyada Hurvidyaya Iti Susrumadiranam Yenastad Vichachakshire Vidyam cha Yas Yastad Tadvedo Bayam Saha Avidyayam Ritum Tidva Vidyayam Ritamasnute Vidyam cha Yas Tadvedo Bayam Andam Tamaha Pravisanti Ye Sambutim Upasyate Tato Bhuya Vitetamo Yayu Sambutam Rataha Anyadeva Hurvidyaya Anyadeva Sambutam Sambhavad Anyad Ahur Sambutam Iti Anyad Evahur Sambhavad Anyad Ahur Sambhavad Iti Susrumadiranam Yenas Chad Vichachakshire Evahur Sambhavad Anyad Ahur Sambhavad Iti Susrumadiranam Yenas Sambutim Cha Vinasam Cha Yastad Vedabhayam Saha Vinasena Miritum Tirva Vidyayam Sambutam Ritamasnute Hiranmayana Patrena Satyasya Pitam Mukam Tatvam Pusama Pavrinu Satyadharmaya Dristaye Pusane Kaseyama Surya Prajapatya Vyuharasmin Samahate Jo Yate Rupam Kalyanatamam Tate Pasyami Yo Savaso Purushaha Sohamasmi Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sarinam om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. Om Agnena Supatara Yasman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yodajmas Juhuranami no Buyastam Te Nama Uktim Videma Om Tat Sat. Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, verse number 27 again. We'll read the verse. There is no doubt about Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how was it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his leg when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Supreme Lord himself. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Haribol. So continuing to understand the unique qualities of Krishna that differentiate him from everyone else, and his unparalleled powers, his unparalleled pastimes, his unparalleled, let's say, activities that demonstrate what's called mutually contradictory activities. In other words, he can be very far away and very close at the same time. He can be greater or bigger than anything else, and yet he's smaller than the smallest. And so forth. These are mutually contradictory qualities that nobody else can emulate. And he can expand himself infinitely, but yet his original form is never diminished. So these are just some of the incredible qualities of Krishna. That's why he's called the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is greater than him, no one is equal to him. When a person begins to understand these things, they become a devotee. But materialistic people, of course, who only have a very, very limited understanding of the material world and no understanding at all of the spiritual world, how can they understand these things? They cannot understand. Because everything in the material world is limited in time. By time. Time also is a factor of Krishna. In fact, there's a wonderful verse that explains this. Kala sambhava samskara kama karma gunadibihi swamahi dvasta mahi bir murtimad bir upasita. So this verse says, this is 10th Canto, 13th chapter, 53rd verse. 10th Canto, 13th chapter, 53rd verse. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, the time factor, Swabhava, one's own nature by association, Samskara, reformation, Kama, desire, Karma, fruit of activity, and the Gunas, the three nodes of material nature, their own independence being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord, had all taken forms and were also worshipping those Vishnumurtis. Now this is an extremely profound verse. First of all, it establishes that everything in the material and spiritual world is personal. Secondly, it confirms that everything in the spiritual and material world is subordinate to the Lord. Is, in other words, acting under the influence and dictation of the Lord. Nothing is independent. And in the purport, or commentary, Srila Prabhupada writes, no one but Vishnu has any independence. If we develop consciousness of this fact, then we are in actual Krishna consciousness. Let me read that again. No one but Vishnu, or Krishna, has any independence. If we develop consciousness of this fact, then we are in actual Krishna consciousness. We should always remember that Krishna is the only supreme master and that everyone else is his servant. Ekala Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasava Britya. Be one even Narayana or Lord Shiva. Everyone is subordinate to Krishna. Shiva Vrinchinutam. Even Baladeva is subordinate to Krishna. This is a fact. Now, this is an amazing verse with an amazing purport. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasava Britya Yare Yaiche Nachaya Se Taichik Hare Nritya. One should understand that no one is independent, for everything is part and parcel of Krishna and is acting and moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. This understanding, this consciousness, is Krishna consciousness. Now, let's try and understand what this is. This is not saying that everyone is a robot. It says basically that everyone is acting under or moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. So that means you could say the same thing about all cars in the state of Washington. All cars in the state of Washington are moving by the superintendents of the state of Washington. Right? So what does it mean as superintendents? Well, they fix and codify the rules of the route, right? And you have to take a test to prove that you understand the rules of the route, right? You have to stop at stoplights and stop at stop signs, and follow the speed limits. You have speed limits on the roads, and also you have to pay your car taxes and have insurance. It's absolutely mandated that you have insurance. You can drive without insurance, but if you get caught, you get fined, right? And how many times are you going to get caught and being fined? They might fine you once or twice, but if you keep doing it, then they take your license away. And then if you keep doing it again, even though they took your license away, they can seize your car. And if you do it again, they'll put you in jail. And if you don't follow the rules in jail, you end up in solitary confinement with no light, no going out in the sunlight, no exercise, and eating very, very plain food. And not all the time, just maybe once or twice a day. It's a solitary confinement even can become more severe if you refuse to cooperate, even in solitary confinement. They can not feed you at all if they want to. They cannot let you have even a shower. They cannot let you speak to anyone. See? And never go out into the sunshine, and so many things happen. So therefore, our freedom is regulated by the state of Washington and by the federal government in the United States. And when we start breaking the rules, our freedoms, our regulated freedoms, become diminished until you could end up in solitary confinement where you have no freedom at all. You see? So, in the same way, Krishna is, as it says here, everyone is subordinate to Krishna, including Baladeva, including Narayana, including Lord Shiva, including Lord Brahma. Right? Although Narayana is an expansion of Krishna, but still, and Balaram is an expansion of Krishna, but still, how do we know that everyone is subordinate to the Lord? Well, Baladev, he liked very much Duryodhana, but Krishna, he always favored Arjuna. And when the war was going to break out, Krishna asked Baladev not to engage in the battle and to leave and come back later on. And he followed what he said, although he liked. And then when Duryodhana was fighting with Bhima, Baladev wanted Bhisma, when Bhisma was fighting with Duryodhana, he wanted Duryodhana to win because Duryodhana was his disciple, right? But when Bhima broke the rules and hit Duryodhana with his weapon below the belt, which is not allowed, Balaram was going to intervene, but Krishna stopped him, and he obeyed Krishna. So there are many examples where that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. Like, for example, when Mahavishnu kidnapped the sons of the Brahmana one by one and was holding them in the causal ocean where he resides, and Arjuna promised the Brahmana that he would bring back find his sons and bring them back to him. Well, when Arjuna couldn't do that, he was going to commit suicide. And then Krishna said, wait a minute, I'll help you. And he took Arjuna outside of the material world to the causal ocean where Mahavishnu is present. And when they approached Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu said, yeah, I kidnapped those boys because I wanted to have direct darshan of Krishna. Well, Mahavishnu is an expansion of Krishna, right? But this just shows that if you read the scriptures, and the Krishna book especially, or the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagvatam, all these transcendental pastimes are there, and it always demonstrates that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God, and everyone is subordinate to him, even including his expansions, who are plenary expansions of him. They're also subordinate to him. So, it says here, one should understand that no one is independent, for everything is part and parcel of Krishna and is acting and moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. This understanding, this consciousness is Krishna consciousness. So we see that although Krishna is the supreme independent and everyone is dependent on him, still every jiva, or every living entity like you and me, have limited free will. Just like everyone in the state of Washington has limited free will, either to follow the rules of the route or to break them. No one is forced with complete surveillance to follow the rules of the route. They can break the rules if they want to. Right? And people do it all the time. They start speeding. They might go the wrong way on the road. They might go through stop signs or red lights. Right? And sometimes they don't get caught. But if they get caught, they're punished. See? But it's impossible to cheat Krishna or do something that Krishna is not aware of. So everybody gets caught in the material world when they break the rules and regulations of spiritual life, such as eating meat, drinking wine, and engaging in illicit activities, and gambling and speculating. They get caught. Krishna's in the heart as the super soul. No one can escape Krishna. Okay, but Krishna does not interfere with the free will of the individual. So if someone doesn't want to follow Krishna's rules and regulations, they need Krishna's help to do that. That's the other point. That to do either sinful activity or to do pious activity, you need Krishna's help. You can't do it independently. Okay? So therefore, Krishna makes arrangements for people to engage, who insist on meditating on sense gratification. He helps them to engage in sense gratification. But they will have to pay for it by the laws of karma. So we see, unless people understand all these things, they come up with fake, phony, nonsense theories. There is no God. Everything started with a big bang. And there's no supreme intelligence in the universe. Everything is based on the Big Bang, and then after that, the law of gravity and electromagnetism and other laws of nature. And nobody made the laws of nature. They came about by themselves, right? And these are all false, fake theories. And this is what's taught as science to kids and to adults. And they believe this nonsense. See? Anyway, then it says, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samat Venaiva Vikshita Sapasandi bhavet dhruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayana must certainly be considered an offender. And that's the quote of the verse. That's the meaning of the verse. No one can compare Narayana or Krishna. Krishna is Narayana, and Narayana is also Krishna. For Krishna is the original Narayana. Brahma himself addressed Krishna, Narayanas tvam na hi sarva dehinam. You are also Narayana. Indeed, you are the original Narayana. So this is a quote from the 10th canto, 14th chapter, 14th verse. We also read the verse in the first canto where Bhisma Pitamaha says that Krishna is the first Narayana. And Brahma says the same thing in the 10th canto. So, Kala, or the time factor, has many assistants such as Sambhava, Sanskara, Kama, Karma, and Guna. Swabhava, or one's own nature, is formed according to the association of the material qualities. Karanam Gunasangasya Sadasat Yoni Janmasu, Bhagavad Gita 13:22. Sat and Asat Swabhava, one's higher or lower nature, is formed by association with different qualities, namely Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, and Tamaguna. We should gradually come to the Sattva Guna so that we may avoid the two lower gunas. This can be done if we regularly discuss Srimad Bhagvatam and hear about Krishna's activities. Nastapresu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatam 1.2.18. All the activities of Krishna described in Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning even with the pastimes concerning Putana, are transcendental. Therefore, by hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, the Raja Guna and Tamo Guna are subdued so that only Sattva Guna remains. Then Raja Guna and Tamo Guna cannot. Scientific knowledge. This is real pedagogy, the science or of how one learns. You learn by rising above the modes of ignorance and passion and coming to the Sattva Guna mode. And this is done by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam every day. And gradually one comes up to the mode of goodness, and in the mode of goodness one begins to understand real knowledge. So knowledge, this whole idea of what is knowledge is very deeply explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. But today, due to all the speculation that takes place, there's no such thing as real scientific knowledge. Everything today is speculation. And speculation is the Big Bang Theory. Speculation is Darwin's theory, the origin of species. Speculation is that we can go to other planets in the universe and live there. This is what Elon Musk is striving for, and Bezos also. These are all nonsense concepts. They went to the moon, so-called, in the 1960s, right? What did they have to show for it? They said, oh, there's no water on the moon. Well, let's go to Mars instead. There is water on the moon. But they find all these excuses why they couldn't get any results. Like when Columbus, so-called, looking for India, discovers the Western Hemisphere, as soon as he goes back and says, I was looking for India, but I ran into this whole continent, and it's a gigantic continent, and we didn't even know it was there. They didn't know it was there. So what happened? One investor after another investor, and there were investors at that time too, 500 years ago, they invested in building better and better boats to go and research the new worlds. That was a new world for the Europeans, right? So Ponce de Leon, and this one, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Italians, the Holland and Netherlands, they all sent boats with captains and crews to discover things. And they did. And they discovered the Mayan civilization, they discovered the Inca civilization, they discovered many different tribes, Indian tribes in North America and Canada, and they basically introduced syphilis and other diseases to and they killed and raped and pillaged those different cultures and established their own cultures. So like Brazil, everybody speaks Portuguese because that area of South America was conquered by the Portuguese. And then you have also Argentina and Chile and many other parts of South America. They speak Spanish because they were conquered by the Spanish, and including Mexico and many countries in Central America. And then in what's called the United States, the British and the French conquered parts of the United States, and the Russians also conquered some parts, or at least were present in some parts of the United States. Eventually, the Brits purchased the part of the United States that was occupied by the French and kicked them out, and then the French also had parts of Canada. They were never really, the French government was kicked out, but the French-speaking part of Canada still exists today. And then there's the English-speaking part of Canada. And the United States purchased Alaska from Russia. That was the best deal they ever made. And so you see, all these things happened because Columbus so-called discovered that there's a Western Hemisphere, you see. Now, they so-called went to the moon. What did they have to show for it? They've never really so-called gone back to the moon, right? And they claimed that they went to the Russians went on the dark side of the moon. They claimed this, they claimed that, but there's nothing to show for it. Whereas as soon as Columbus came back and gave news about the Western Hemisphere, there's plenty to show for it, right? So you see, there are a lot of hoaxes, a lot of false things. But the biggest false thing, and this is very interesting, is the definition of the word science. And we've been going through different things that are defined today in the dictionary and Encyclopedia Britannica and so forth. And we see that the definitions are actually not correct. They have to do that in order to limit their studies to things that they can measure, and to eliminate anything that they can't measure as not being scientific. But that's not the truth. So the meaning of science, if you look it up in a dictionary, if you can look it up now, it means knowledge, right? Now, what does that mean, knowledge? It's knowing things and becoming expert in something. And there's also the principle of predictability involved in it also. So, for example, it says, they claim that the word science comes from Latin, scientia, and knowledge is knowing expertness or experience, any systematic knowledge base or prescriptive practice capable of resulting in prediction. So that has to be there too, predictability, when something is actually knowledge. And science is a continuing effort to discover and increase knowledge through research. Okay, so this is more or less the modern understanding of what is science. It's a type of knowledge, or it is knowledge. But that is not the real understanding of science. Science, according to Vedic scriptures, is jnana and vijnana. And it's explained in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Amanitvam adamnitvam himsasantar arjavam acharya pasamam socham staryam atma vinigraha indiyarte suvairagyam jnana and so therefore is the 20 points of knowledge are explained in the 13th chapter, and it says anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosana darshana, and so forth. It's six verses and 5 verses that explain the 18 or 20 points of knowledge. So knowledge is or science, science is something that's predictable. And real science, and today you'll see in the definition of science, there's hard science and there's soft science, according to the materialists. The hard science are things like mathematics and chemistry. And the soft science are things like accounting and anthropology and things like that, it even includes literature and so forth. So all those types of knowledge are not genuine jnana or vijnana. So what does jnana mean? Jnana means, and this is like real knowledge according to the Vedas. Jnana means understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And vijnana is understanding not only the soul and the body, and it's understanding the soul's relationship to Paramatma or Krishna, right? And then Ananda Maya is understanding that everything, meaning the spiritual world, meaning the Narayana expansions, Chaturvyuha, Balaram, and then coming down to the Vishnu expansions, and the material world and the jivas, everything's coming from Krishna. That is the highest level of scientific knowledge. And it's all predictable. In fact, there's no way to have science unless there is a orderly functioning of nature. If everything is chaos, you couldn't have any predictability at all. So where did all that orderly functioning of nature come from? Well, they say it happened by itself. But yet, anything orderly and predictable in the material world, like let's say there's a company named Microsoft, and they own the MS-DOS, right? Their computer program, and it's predictable. It can do certain things, and it's predictable, right? But that didn't happen by accident. And you also have the JavaScript, you have the C++, and you have this and that. All these things that have some predictability to them, because it has to be predictable if it's scientific. They were all done by human beings, by intelligent people. None of that happened by itself. But yet, when they talk about the universe, they say no one is behind the universe. It just happened by itself. This is nonsense. It's irrational. The so-called rationalists are actually irrational. You see, and they're selling their what you call their phony knowledge and science, and claiming that they know something, but actually they don't know anything, because real science, if there's any scientist in the Western world, it was Jesus Christ. See, because he came back from the dead. So that's the real goal of science. If you look up what is the actual goal of science, it's to achieve immortality. And that was always been the goal of science, whether it was alchemy, whether it was exploration for the elixir of immortality, whether it's to find immortality by going to other planets, or this or that. It's always been, or whether it's Calico, the company started by Google in order to find the cure for old age, disease, and death, and to attain immortality. See, that's the real goal of science. So if you say that's the goal of science, then Jesus Christ is the only real scientist in the Western world, right? Of course, there are many other scientists in India. In fact, the whole Bhagavad Gita is a treatise of how to achieve immortality. That's real science, right? It's predictable. If you follow what's in the nectar of devotion, you will attain, and Bhagavad Gita, you will attain immortality. And it's predictable. Every step of the way of becoming Krishna conscious is explained with exacting detail in the nectar of devotion, or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. And every step is predictable. And we see it happening even in our temples. When people come, they don't know anything about the soul, they don't know anything about God, although they have false concepts. But after some association, especially if you come regularly to classes, you understand many things about God. You understand that that we are all subordinate to God, and that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore everything should be used in His service. So here in this verse, 1353, Lord Brahma, who's the engineer of the material creation, and he learned everything from Krishna, he's seeing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is Kala, the time factor, and which controls the swabhava, one's own nature by association. In other words, it says one's nature by association. So those people who come to class on a regular basis, they're associating with Prabhupada's purports and Krishna's original words, and the entire Srimad Bhagvatam, compiled by Vyasadeva, but spoken by his son, Sukadeva Goswami. You're associating with these people, and therefore you're developing this spiritual nature. The nature of a person is developed through association. Now, you can associate with people in a bar. They're drinking, smoking, and engaging in gambling and illicit sex, and you develop a nature. You can go to college and you're associating with speculators, and you develop a certain nature. We see it all over the place. You end up not believing in God. You believe in science, so-called science, but it's mostly junk science, and as they call snake oil, and you become an atheist, and you believe after 16, 18, 24 years of so-called modern science, you think that the goal of life is sense gratification, and in order to have sustained sense gratification, you have to make money, and that's the goal of life. And when you die, there's nothing after that. So this is by association. Tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. So if you associate with speculators, if you associate with criminals, if you associate with saints, well, we can understand what your nature will be. It's all done by association. So when you send your children to schools where all the teachers are basically materialists, don't be surprised that your child ends up becoming a materialist later on in life, right? And they believe that everything started with a big bang, and we all come from monkeys and all that nonsense. And that, our real future is going to Mars, because Elon Musk is practicing how to go to Mars right now. So that's where our real future is. Well, goodbye, Elon. You go there first, and then tell us what's going on there. That's crazy. People have gone nuts, and they believe these type of people, like Elon Musk and Bezos and Gates, and all these people are actually speculators. They don't know what they're doing, but they are considered to be heroes. So people follow them, and therefore this verse, Nate vidu swatagatim hivishnum durasaya ye bahir artamanina andayatandar upaniyamanas tepisas tantriam urudamni badha. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead. And therefore they engage in the they cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service or devotional service of Lord Vishnu. A blind man guided by another blind man misses the right path and falls into a ditch. Materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So this is what happens when one is subjected to associating with speculators and so-called pundits. You know, they use the word pundit for a stockbroker nowadays. See how low the definition of pundit has gone, right? Stockbrokers are some of the most biggest criminals, white-collar criminals in the world. They get caught all the time, just like, what was the name of that? Mr. Madoff. But there are big Madoffs like Madoff, and there are little Madoffs. There's thousands of little Madoffs, and the big Madoff is Madoff himself. You know, it depends on how much money you steal from others. So Madoff stole $50 billion, right? And the little Madoffs, they steal $1 million or $5 million or $10 million. But they're all Madoffs, all of them. Meaning they're mad and their head has gone off, right? A Madoff. Okay, so therefore, the swabhava, one's own nature by association, and samskara, reformation, and kama, desire, karma, fruit of activity, and the gunas, the three modes of material nature, and all these things are controlled by Krishna himself. Okay, so therefore, the Varnashram Dharma, therefore, is essential, for it can bring people to sattva guna. Tadarajas tamobhava kamaloba dayaschaya. Now you know why we're reciting these prayers every day from the first canto, second chapter, because it's fundamental to understand how we're situated in the material world. So tamaguna and rajaguna increase lust and greed, which implicate a living entity in such a way that he must exist in this material world in many, many forms. That is very dangerous. One should therefore be brought to sattva guna by the establishment of varnashram dharma, and should develop the Brahminical qualifications of being very neat and clean, rising early in the morning and seeing mangala aratrika, and so on. In this way, one should stay in sattva guna, and then one cannot be influenced by tamaguna and rajaguna. So we see that all our kids are sleeping right now. Is that right? Are they all sleeping right now? Well, not our Prabhuji here, but everybody else is sleeping, right? Why are they all sleeping? How about their parents? They're also sleeping, or most of them. So why don't they come at least on Saturday and Sunday to Mangalarti? You see, they only come on some festival day. Why don't they come every Saturday and Sunday? Okay, we can understand Monday to Friday, they have to work and this thing and that. But Saturday and Sunday, they're not working. But see, they don't come. Why? Because they are caught by association of mundane people. So they follow the lifestyle of mundane people, sleeping in, and so many other things. So, therefore, to become a devotee, you have to follow the rules and regulations. And Prabhupada, when the first devotees in New York asked Prabhupada, are there any rules, Prabhupada? Because in the beginning he never talked about rules. They said, oh yes, there are. And then when he wrote them down and they saw the rules, they're sorry they asked him. Because you're supposed to wake up every morning for Mangalarti and come to Mangalarti and take part in the morning program and hear the class, And then you can go to work, and then you can come back again in the evening, again, and see the arti and hear the class. This hearing is the most important thing. Shravanam, kirtanam. The 9 types of devotional service begins with Shravanam, which is hearing. Hearing from genuine devotees, not from nonsense people, right? But we're hearing, at least our kids are hearing from nonsense people all day long for at least 6 to 8 hours. So what do you expect that's going to happen to them? Say, you are hearing from nonsense people, for 6 to 8 hours for 16 years or more, right? And if you never met a devotee, you would still be doing all that nonsense, right? Just like Madhava Chandra, he always says, before I met the devotees, the proudest thing I had was my wine cellar in my house. You ever hear him say that? Right? And that was his achievement in life. He had an expensive wine cellar in his house here in Seattle, in the area somewhere, right? But after he met the devotees, he got rid of the wine cellar. And his best property is the Srimad Bhagvatam and Bhagavad Gita, right? He replaced the wine cellar with the Bhagavatam. That was due to association, right? He realized that the wine cellar is crap, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the real nectar of life. So this swabhava is developed by association. Okay, so it says, Tadarajas tamo bhavo kamalobadayasche cheta tairanavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. Srimad Bhagavatam 1-19. The opportunity for purification is the special feature of human life. The opportunity for purification is the special feature of human life. In other lives, this is not possible. You can't become purified if you're a dog, right? The dog can listen. He's got ears also. It can listen to classes, but it doesn't mean it's going to get purified by it. Such purification can be achieved very easily by Radha Krishna Bhajana. Wow. Devotional service rendered to Radha and Krishna. And therefore, Narottam Dasa Thakura sings, Hari Hari Vipale Janama Goinu, indicating that a useless one indicating that unless one worships Radha Krishna, one's human form of life is wasted. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yasavairagam Yanam Chaya Dahaitakam Srimad Bhagavatam 127. By engagement in the service of Vasudeva, one very quickly renounces material life. The members of the Krishna consciousness movement, for example, being engaged in Vasudeva Bhakti, very quickly come to the stage of being nice Vaishnavas, so much so that people are surprised that Malechas and Yavanas are able to come to this stage. This is possible by Vasudeva Bhakti. But if we do not come to the stage of Sattva Guna in this human life, then as Narottam Das Thakura sings, Hari Hari Vipale Janama Goinu, there is no profit in gaining this human form of life. Yeah, then you can become an animal next life because you wasted the human life eating, sleeping, mating, and defending like animals. So why should you be promoted to the spiritual world? You have to gain that promotion, not by sleeping in, but by yajna, dana, and tapasya, by sacrifices and by charity and by rigid austerities, right? But the austerities in Krishna consciousness are not so rigid. Waking up early is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, right? And eating only prasadam is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And chanting Hare Krishna and hearing classes and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are not bad things. It's actually good things. And chanting and dancing and kirtan is not bad. It's actually good. So the tapasya in Krishna consciousness is actually enjoyable. Whereas the tapasya of the yogi, it's horrible. You have to be meditating in a cold, dank, dark cave in the Himalayas, or meditating in the freezing waters of the Ganges. It's not. I mean, Sobari Muni was meditating underwater for 10,000 years, right? And Vishwamrita Muni had to meditate for almost 60,000 years, right? And he even fell down at least once or more. So the tapasya of the yogis is actually very, very severe. But the tapasya of the devotees is full of bliss. Chanting, dancing, and feasting. And then hearing Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. All these things are actually enjoyable. If you don't have an asuric nature. The asuric nature is like this. There was once a king thief, and he was the king of the thieves, and he had a son, and he taught his son also to take this position as king after the father died. So the father died, then the son became a king. But before the father died, the last thing he instructed his son was 3 things. He said, 1, if you ever get caught stealing, never admit that you're a thief. 2, he said, if you, and he said 2, he said, never go to a Hare Krishna temple. He said 3, if by accident you go to a Hare Krishna temple, put your hands on your ears and don't listen to anything they say. These were the last instructions his father gave to him. And then he died, right? So then the boy became the king of the thieves. He wasn't a boy, he was a man now. And he was better than his father, much better than his father. But one day, he was sneaking in through a window of a very rich man, a crorepati. But unfortunately, he didn't see that there was a cat sleeping under that window. And when he stepped on the cat screamed. And the owner of the house woke up. And he had this direct alarm system, when he pushes the button, immediately the police will come to his house. He had a direct, because he's a very rich man, and he had all kinds of protections. So when the king of the thieves, he stepped on the cat, and the lights came on, and the alarm went off. So he jumped back out the window and ran and hid behind some bush in the big garden of this man had a huge house and a huge property. And then in a matter of a couple minutes, the police surrounded the whole place. And he was going from one bush to another, trying to avoid anyone seeing him. At one point, the police and the owner, the police chief and the owner of the house were walking past where he was hiding, and the policeman said, "Don't worry, we got the whole place surrounded. We're going to catch him very shortly." So the guy was really worried, And then he heard some noise, and he saw there was some building close by with some lights, and so he snuck here and there. He ran into that building. It happened to be a Hare Krishna temple. So he goes in, and he sees the devotees, so he bows down like this, and then he remembers what his father said, if by accident you do go into a Hare Krishna temple, don't listen to anything they said. And before he actually plugged his ears, there was the kirtan ended, and then the class started, and the devotee was giving the class. He said, and the deva's feet never touched the ground. And then he plugged his ears, and then after that, the police came and caught him. So now he's in jail, and they were beating him up and said, "Okay, admit you're a thief." He said, "No, I never stole anything in my life. I'm the most honest person. You got the wrong man." So this went on for a day or 2 or 3 days, and finally the police had a little meeting, and they said, "Look, the guy's not admitting it, and we don't have a witness. We caught him outside of the property. We know it's him, but we don't have a witness, and we don't have enough evidence to hold him. So one of the policemen said, well, wait a minute. This guy's a thief, and all the thieves we know, they all worship Durga. And everyone looked at each other. So what? I said, no, what we'll do is, and we've been watching this guy very carefully. You know, he's praying all the time to Durga. And they said, okay, so what? I said, well, we'll dress up one of our secretaries as Durga and let her go there at night and tell him I've come because you prayed so sincerely and I'm going to get you out. But just please tell me first, did you actually steal? Were you actually trying to steal from that man? And as soon as he says yes, then, well, we got him. So, I mean, this only happens in India, right? So they said, okay. So they dressed one lady up like Durga, you know, they put some arms on her and things like that, you know. And late at night, around 12, 1 o'clock, he was praying. He was praying, you know, to Durga Mata. And all of a sudden, you know, some smoky light appears, and she walks in, and she said, my dear son, you have prayed so sincerely, I have come. He said, oh, Mata, it's you, I can't believe it, this is the best moment of my life. And she said, yes, my dear boy. And he was, you know, he was bowing down like this, and he kept his eyes open though, and he saw her feet were touching the ground. And she said, did you try to steal from that man? He said, no. She said, my son, please tell the truth. Did you go to that rich man's house and try and steal from him? He said, no, I didn't go there. Mata, I'm telling you the truth. She said, my dear boy, don't lie to me, because then I cannot help you. I'm going to take you away from this prison and help you. Please tell me the truth. No, it's the truth, Mata. He kept looking at her feet touching the ground, right? So she got really upset. So, okay, then you stay there. And then she left. You know. So the next day they had to let him out, right? And so he went back and joined all his big group of thieves. He said, hey, how'd you get out? You know, I said, well, I just followed what my father said, you know. Never admit you're a thief, and if you never go to Hare Krishna temple, but if you do, then just block your ears and don't hear anything they say. He said, yeah, see, you know, your dad knew everything, you know. He said, but actually, he said, I'm not going to be the king of the thieves anymore. They said, what? You got out, man. You beat them. They can't do it. No, he says, it's not that. But I did hear one thing from those devotees before I blocked my ear. I said, well, what was that? He said, well, he was talking about the devas. He said, the devas' feet never touched the ground. This is so what? He said, no, but the police, they dressed some lady up like Durga. You know, I was praying to her every day, and she came late at night, and she asked me, did you steal from that man? I was going to say yes. But then I saw her feet were touching the ground. And that was just by hearing something accidentally, and a little thing accidentally saved my life. They said, so what? That's the main thing. You're free now. I said, no. What if I go every day and listen carefully to what they say? Well, imagine how beneficial it could be. He said, no, don't believe that. You know, the Hare Krishnas, they're terrible people, you know, and they eat babies. He said, what? I didn't see that, you know. No, they make up anything, right? So he left, and he started going to the temple, and he became a devotee. You see? Because he realized just by hearing one little thing, it saved his life. What if he listens all the time? You see? So that thief is better than most of our devotees, because he realized the value of hearing every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagvatam. So as it says here, that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, for example, being engaged in Vasudeva Bhakti, very quickly come to the stage of being nice Vaishnavas, so much so that people are surprised that Malechas and Yavanas are able to come to this stage. This is possible by Vasudeva Bhakti. But if we do not come to the stage of Sattva Guna in this human life, then, as Narottam Das Thakur sings, Hari Hari Vipale janamagoinu. There is no profit in gaining this human form of life. Okay, so there's more to this, but we'll stop right there. Very interesting verse, the 10th canto, 13th chapter, 53rd verse. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you very much. Okay. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhu Muli Savadana Bandhu Muli Savadana Ma De Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Te Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Goriya Kya Arana Koriya Maneya Sa Arana Koriya Maneya Sa Shri Guru Charana Padma Shri Guru Charana Rati Aise Uttama Gati Prasade Pure Sarvasa Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa Chakshudana Nilaje Janme Janme Prabhu Se Divya Gyani de Pokasito Prema Bhakti Jahaite Avidya Vina Sahajate Vedegaya Janara Charito Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Pada Jaya Ebe Yasagusakti Bhuvana Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Pada Jaya Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Pada Jaya Ebe Yasagusakti Bhuvana Ebe Yasagusakti Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavani Pasyajare Zatarine Bolo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta-vindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta-vindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Jayum Vishnupad Paramansa Parvajika Chasta Tarasatarashi Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Nivesesa Sunyavari Paskati Dasatari Shri Gaur Premanandi Haribol Nama Om. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your devotee and lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gaur Premanandi.